Hey, this is Lindsay, and today we're going to go over the 2020 Yamaha YZ two-strokes, both the motocross and the cross-country models. There is one new model in here with the YZ125X, and then pretty much everything else from there is just a carryover B&G bike, which we'll get to. But we're going to start with the new. The one good thing to talk about coming out of this press release in the two-stroke world, if you've been waiting for them, Yamaha, I believe, has had a 125X. I believe in Japan they have sold it, and maybe somewhere in Europe or Australia. I know it's been available for a year or so in other nations or other markets for them, but they're finally bringing it to the U.S., one that is optimized and designed per se for the U.S. And what that means is they've taken a YZ125 motocross bike and they've done what they can to set it up for cross country. Specifically in the GNCC series, there's now a 125 specific class. I believe it's the XC3 Pro Class. So they're finally introducing a bike that is kind of set up for that. Initially, they have had a YZ250X now for a couple of years, so they're finally bringing in a 125 version. The 125 version, the biggest upgrades, like engine-wise, is its own model-specific CDI ignition settings, a new power valve shape, different timing, different duration on that power valve, as well as a new cylinder head. Basically, they've changed the combustion chamber shape. All of it is focused on delivering more of a broad power, so a lot more of a smoother, a lot less of that a lot less of that two-stroke power band point hit that it has. A lot more of a broad roll-on, something that's going to be easier to use in these off-road conditions in GNCCs on wet trees and rock roots, all that stuff. Just more of an open overall power, and it's definitely something that, I'm sure plenty of people have taken a YZ125, a standard one, and converted to ride off-road. But definitely, even though, maybe memories fade a little bit, but definitely proper pipe and timing and CDI and cylinder head design on a two-stroke makes a huge difference in how that power can be delivered. So it's definitely cool to ride one that they have set up specifically for that style power band. The bike already has a 6-speed transmission. They have not decided to change any of the ratios for off-road, so it doesn't have any different type of ratios between first through sixth. It's the same as the motocross model. And then other than that, the real big change comes to the suspension. They've gone ahead and taken all of it and set up for off-road. It doesn't say specifically in this PR. I would imagine they typically for this stuff, they'll drop the front spring rate by 1 rate when they go to a off-road or XC model. But being that the YZ125 is already lightly sprung, maybe it's the same, might be down a rate. All the settings in it have been updated and changed. You're going to end up with something that is, of course, a lot more initially compliant, something that can settle on these rocks and tree roots, something that just doesn't deflect when you hit more of a sharper edge. Also has O-ring chain. It has a kickstand. It has a fuel tank petcock with a reserve position. It doesn't look that actually has, they haven't increased the fuel capacity per se of this tank, but bike's been around long enough. There also are options from like IMFs and Cherubies. The other big change there for enduro specific use is Dunlop's Geomax AT81 tire, and they have updated the rear rim to an 18-inch rear. So that's just kind of all they've done to go ahead and bring this in and get it ready for off-road racing. There's nothing else major on the list to do, but like I said, they've basically done what they can power-wise to spread out that power to make it more broad and usable, and then added the typical goodies we see between the side stand, the rear wheel at 18-inch, and bringing in the off-road spec suspension. Moving on to the YZ250X, we are in B&G land here. So this bike, of course, came out a couple years ago now, and same thing kind of like what we listed with the YZ125. It has its own exhaust pouring compression ratio. This one's actually a little more changed than say the 125 is, because it's not only it has its own compression ratio, the exhaust port, power valve timing, model specific CDI. I think it has a different pipe as well. I'd have to double check that. But it also has a wide ratio 5-speed transmission, so they did not retain the motocross tranny when they built the YZ250X. Same thing, 18-inch rear wheel, AT81 tires, off-road specific settings, valves or spring rates, etc. That bike will be available later this month at $7,599 MSRP. Also, I missed saying it on the 125. The 125X is also available this month for $6,699 MSRP. And then lastly, before we get done, we'll talk about the 2020 YZ125 and YZ250 two-stroke. sadly, I know people, every year this rumor comes around, the Yamahas are getting a big update. I hear from my dealer, I hear from such and such, he has a brother that works there, ex-uncle's niece. No, sorry, rumor's not true. We have no updates for the YZ125 or YZ250 two-stroke. We are B&G again this year. It's been a couple years now, but they updated the bodywork and suspension a couple years ago. They always update the forks pretty often to keep them on similar tubing or some of the parts changes they've made to the four-stroke line. And they've updated tires, but really that's about it over the range. So really same technical bikes as last year, the year prior to that. Just an updated look on graphics. Those bikes will be available this month in dealerships. 125 is $6,499 MSRP. And the YZ250 two-stroke is $7,399 MSRP. So I'll throw the tech specs in for those two here at the end of this. Other than that, I also have a video up on the 450 and 250F motocross bikes. The 450 actually got quite the host of changes. You can find that link in the description below. And then I'm also getting ready to finish up the video for the four-stroke cross-country lineup because there is an all-new YZ250FX. And as soon as that video is done, you can also find the link in the description below, or it'll just pop up on your notifications. And if you're not getting notifications, that's probably because you're not subscribed to this channel. And if you like the content I'm doing here, shadows, bike tests, these bike intro, basically info videos. We're getting into bike testing season. We'll have shootouts soon, work on some project bikes, helping out some privateers, just a bunch of other cool stuff. Make sure you hit subscribe, hit the little bell icon if you want full notifications to know every time we upload. Also, check out my podcast, the Off-Camber, presented by Specialized. Got quite a few cool guests on there. Got one coming out this week with Wes Williams, kind of the main guy behind Verb Moto and a bunch of the great Red Bull content we see in the motorsports or motocross area these days. But thanks for watching.